What is this, fucking Groundhog's Day? Yes, it is. I'm back to film again what I already live streamed. The fucking camera rig acted up, so I'm gonna film again and tell the same stories. A couple of viewers have already reached out to me to congratulate me on my entertaining stories, so for all of you, you get to hear them again. In this video, I'm about to best Jeff Bezos and all of the other billionaire playboys by becoming a Zimbabwean trillionaire. Thanks to a friend who generously gifted this set of Zimbabwe hyperinflation banknotes. The banknotes are only worth a collector's value at the worst time when Zimbabwe's government stopped printing these banknotes in 2009. The $100 trillion banknote was worth a mere 40 US cents. So we are going to open the envelope with surgical precision. And touch the notes only with gloves to avoid my stinky, sweaty hands from devaluing what's already devalued. As my Zimbabwe stories were so entertaining, I'm going to repeat them again, but hopefully with some more vim and vigor this time. We'll start with the Zimbabwe $1 bill. The first two Zimbabwe notes are my favorite because they have the African Big Five on them. This one is a Cape Buffalo next to the mighty Victoria Falls. I trekked on foot Cape Buffalo by myself on the shores of Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe. I've oft mentioned that bush camping trip through 4 months and 13 countries in Africa. What is up with this right now? Ugh, I'm having trouble this time around with my orientations here. Bush camping is such where you are actually camping where animals roam freely. Some might wonder, is this dangerous? Yes, it can be, like everything else in life. One such dangerous story happened with our next animal coming up on the $1 billion bill. And just as a reminder, when I quote-unquote unboxed this set earlier, That was the first time I'd ever seen the bills, but now this is my second time around. Why I decided to refilm is that, honestly, I really want the orientation for myself to be correct when I watch it. So I'll take this opportunity to repeat myself again. I had a death-defying encounter with an elephant that looks curiously, suspiciously like this one over here. Of course, this is an African elephant, to be distinguished from the Asian elephant. The elephant I had observed from a good distance away, grazing on the bush. Smart me thought that I would allow it plenty of space to meander and do its thing. It was obviously attracted to me more than I thought, because it suddenly appeared from the bush very, very close to where I was standing. In doing so, we both had a frightening start. The elephant seemed perturbed by my presence and did what I consider to be a gangster chest flex. I think it was communicating to me that you best stay away, which I definitely did. I stood frozen where I was. I could feel the rumble of the elephant's weight beneath my feet. One of the camp workers happened to be near me at the time. He's also an experienced guide as a local living amongst wild animals. He suggested that we both just stay still and allow the elephant its space. I calmed myself with my Wim Hof breathing. Deep in and deep out. That proved to be very helpful to me, because the elephant seemed to understand that I was just waiting for it to cross the road and go on its merry way. He did, however, make fake charges a couple of times, but after a while he moved on, across the road to the other side. We both waited and listened with bated breath as those enormous stomps disappeared into the distance. That is my brush with elephant death. And I've become a billionaire, multi-billionaire. On my previous video, I expressed my wish to have all of the big five on these bills, but unfortunately that has already ended, with the first two bills being the only bills that have animals on them. I'm actually losing track of my rotations. Have I rotated all the bills twice? I hope so, because This is the first and only time I've ever refilmed a video because there are technical difficulties and I have the time to refilm. Normally I would just allow the live to go up, but this is, again, a learning experience. Use this as an opportunity for me to learn and grow. All of the notes have on them these 3 rocks. I am ashamed to admit I have no idea what these rocks actually are. What are they? Outside of the big 5, other weird but majestic animals often roam around in Africa. The hippos really like Lake Kariba. I trekked a lot of these animals on foot at Lake Kariba because that's how they operate camps amongst wild animals. You basically live where they roam, and you run the risk of having encounters with them. People do die, but if you listen to what your guides say, you should stay alive long enough to tell the tale as I'm telling now. But sometimes even the guides themselves have lapses of judgment. At that same Lake Kariba, one of my guides forgot an apple in his tent. We'd already been warned that hippos like to exit the water and meander around the campsite. They'll do even more so if you leave food in your tent. So that's what happened. A hippo obviously smelled the apple and moseyed on up from the lake. He tried several times to enter my guide's tent. My guide then did something which is a huge no-no. This is something that all the campsite people tell you strictly, that you are to leave the hippo alone and let the hippo do its thing. The hippo will move on its own. Do not throw items at it. What did my guy do? He threw stones at the hippo. The hippo was extremely agitated, and he hung out what can be accurately described as hooving at the tent instead of pawing. Wait, I have to check that. Do hippos have hooves? They all called seahorses for a reason. I'll have to double check that. But in any case, the hippo hooved at the tent a couple of times, but luckily for us, moved on. The noises coming out of the hippo and the smells were very interesting. I can only describe them as loud and smelly. But that was okay. I still spent probably a good 12 or more hours just trekking hippo alone at that lake. The lake was a short 3-minute walk from my tent. Of course, the other hours I spent trekking across the enormous, gigantic campsite where I had encountered that aggressive elephant. Or maybe the elephant would say I'm aggressive. these are some of the stories that happen when you are wild bush camping through Africa. The distinction is that you really do run the risk of encountering wild animals, but that's exactly what I wanted. If you ask local Africans, that's how they interact with nature, so I think it's the most authentic experience. I bush camped through all of the major nature reserve game parks that you can mention or think of. Masai Mara in Kenya, the windy, impenetrable forests in Uganda, Queen Victoria Lake and Reserve in Uganda. I'm remembering more on this pass. Ngorongoro Crater, Serengeti in Tanzania, Etosha in Namibia, Kruger in South Africa, probably many more. I named, I think, the main ones. I added a couple from last time's filming because the human memory is like that. You have to give it some time. In storytelling, I also lose track of how many times I've showed the bill, so I try for 2 times on each side, but I might be flipping it several times, so you just get to enjoy my sweet voice and stories then. Of course, I've repeated myself so much that I'm choking now. As I mentioned, next time I'll be surpassing Elon Musk, although he's admittedly much smarter than I am. Him and Bezos, even though I'm going to be besting them with my $1 trillion coming up, I'm relying on them to bring me to my new adventure frontier of space. That's something I've mentioned several times that I'm interested in doing. And I hope before I bite the dust that either of them or Sir Richard Branson create commercial spaceflight, affordable commercial spaceflight. Now that might seem quite fanciful, given the current world we live in, where we barely have normal air flight back in action. But hey, I'm playing the long game here. I'm many decades ahead if I maintain my body and health. It's something that I'm looking forward to. This might seem so because we are talking heavily about Zimbabwe, but I think Lake Kariba is one of my favorite places, one of my favorite game parks in the world, because you have the opportunity of trekking animals on foot by yourself. I remember that by that time in our safari, we were many days in, probably at least a good month or 2 in. People were tired of it all. Most people just chilled and slept, but I trekked and trekked and trekked. With this 50 billion, I have indeed caught up to Elon. I've mentioned this many times, again and again, but it's worth repeating. Right now, while we're grounded from adventure travel, we can do many things to substitute that. Why I'm continuing this Money Monday series is this is one way of traveling. Currency is one of the best travel artifacts because it encapsulates so much of the history and culture in a timeless artistic format. Coins are even more durable. Coins are something that I'll show after I officially beat all of those billionaire playboys with my $1 trillion. Actually, multi-trillion dollars. Tens of trillions of dollars, to be exact. Given that I've been interested in organizing and categorizing and curating my travel artifacts, especially currency, I've researched and discovered that there are grading systems to banknotes and coins. For coins, NGC; for banknotes, PMG. That's been an interesting resource. In the same way that diamonds have an expertise to grading banknotes, and currency also has the same thing. So, one last time is the pouch, starting from $1 all the way to 10 trillion. Now, one thing I wish is to add an extra zero at the end. From what I recall, 100 trillion is the bill with the most number of zeros in the world. That seems like a stretch, but so says Wikipedia. Now, since we are talking about Zimbabwe, I'll continue with some coins. That first set of hyperinflation notes was from a friend as a gift. Thanks again to that friend for providing me more content. Right, actually, first we'll start with the Zimbabwe coins, and then I'll sneak in a special treat. Okay. Those notes that I just displayed were stopped in 2009 when the $100 trillion bill I mentioned that has the world's most zeros was worth a measly 40 cents USD. Now, when I was in Zimbabwe, the situation was extremely dire, Everyone I came across wanted me to pay in US dollars if possible. The thing is that in 2018, Zimbabwe had already introduced some new currency called bond. This is a 25-cent bond. The currency is 1-to-1 ratio with US. The problem is that Zimbabwe currency can only be used in Zimbabwe. So obviously, me being a smart cookie, I kept as many USDs as I could, but I did obtain some of these bond coins as a souvenir. Now, this might be a little graffiti-like, but the RBZ inside the coin stands for Zimbabwe. We have another 10 cents bond coin. This one a little more oxidized from use. RBZ, Zimbabwe. I took a chance filming outside with paper notes this time, but the thing is that I love being outdoors. I've mentioned again and again, part of me being happy and healthy during these difficult times is being outside as much as possible. So last week I showed some Canadian currency because a viewer requested that. The coins showed up well enough, but I'm going to show them again with some additions. I picked these ones because I'm promoting Canada's mint from the goodness of my heart. They've added color to many coins. So last week only the picture showed up well. This week the writing also shows up. This coin commemorates 2002 and our gold medal winning hockey team. We also won gold in women's hockey. I really love how the mint adds color to our coins because they just add a dynamic element. This is our famed Pacific Northwest orca. We also have some more animals here with the indigenous style designs. Again, these colors make the coins really pop. And this should be it from my first time ever refilming content.